Hello, welcome to Fix It with Fowler. My name's Steve and today I'm going to be teaching you how to prepare and then paint bare plaster using some basic DIY painting tools, some standard emulsion and also the importance of a mist coat before you come to put your final coat of paint on. Okay, so the first stage really is to prepare the wall before we do anything to do with paint. So prepare the wall, what I mean is fill any sort of imperfections that are in the wall. Now obviously these two walls have been freshly plastered by myself. This wall is actually better than this wall. So what we're going to have to do really is just sand down in a few areas, take out any imperfections now. It's a lot easier to do it now than once it's covered in paint. So what you're going to need for that, obviously you're going to need some sandpaper. Now sandpaper comes in all different grades. The grades are obviously the coarseness of paper. Now bare plaster itself is actually quite delicate. If you were to go over it with something say like an 80 grit, which is quite coarse, you can actually do more damage than good. You'll actually put loads of score lines in the plaster, which then you're going to need to fill. So the rougher stuff you don't need to bother with. If there's anything really bad, then you could start with something like 120 grit. This is punched paper and designed to go onto an electric sander. This is 180 grit, that's really what I'd recommend. So you can get that, this particular one was from Wilco's, this was from Screwfix. It's exactly the same stuff. The stuff from Screwfix comes already cut a size to go onto a hand sander. So they just work by trapping the sandpaper. You can bend that round and then put that in, and then that allows you to sand the wall, which will then keep that nice and flat. So where do we really need to sand? If you look across the wall, you can shine a light up the wall to have a look for any implications. Run your hand across the wall and you'll really feel any roughness. So you really want to take that off. The most important thing really to sand would be the corners and along the ceiling and wall junction. So the top sort of, at the top of the wall. Okay, so just a few things really that I'd like to point out before we start. So firstly, what is the importance of a mist coat and what does it actually do? So if we was to just get this paint straight out the tin and paint the wall, what will happen is the plaster is really porous at the minute and that will suck all the moisture out of the paint too quickly. And the paint will cure, but it won't have actually keyed to the plaster. So what we're trying to do is prevent that from happening. Now you may have seen people saying use PVA, use a PVA mixed with water. Do not do that because you're just going to create the same sort of problems. So what you really need to do is create a mist coat of paint that will be absorbed into the plaster and give you a foundation for your actual coats of paint. So how do we create this mist coat? And also, what can we use for it? So firstly, what can we use? The obvious answer is paint. So there's all sorts of paint. This is Super Matte, it's a Dulux trade paint, and it is really, really good. I use this a lot, the coverage is fantastic. So what you're really looking for is a matte paint. Not a vinyl matte, not a vinyl silk, not a silk, and not an endurance paint. The reason for that is it is very similar to like using a PVA coat onto the plaster. What that will do is when you put it onto the plaster will suck the moisture out of the paint too quick. The paint will then be on the wall, but in the future what will happen is that paint will start to lift because it's not got anything underneath to key to. So what we're really trying to do is create that base for the future paint. So once you've selected the right paint, which like I said has got to be a matte paint, then look on the back and it will tell you what ratio to mix it with. In this particular case, this is 3 parts paint to 1 part water. Now I personally think that is quite a lot of paint, but that's their recommendations, and really you should follow their recommendations so you don't have any problems in the future. So let's go on to mix the paint. That's really straightforward. I'm just going to roughly guess it. It's not really rocket science. Some people would mix this 50-50, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You just make your own decision on what you think. That's the mist coat complete. So as you can see, it doesn't leave a too bad finish considering that it's actually watered down emulsion. There is different areas that are darker than others, and that's really down to how I've put the paint on the wall and where I've overlapped it and stuff. The other issue is places like this. Now, when you're close up you can see it better, but it's where the walls had a bit of filler in. So in places where I've caught it with the trowel when I was plastering, I've just put a bit of filler and sanded it, so the mist coat won't actually sink into that area like it has on the plaster, which is why it looks a slightly different shade. However, that's given us a good base for the next coat of paint. That's all you need to do with the mist coat, just one coat, that's it, and then you can crack on and you can use your colour or you can use white, whatever you want to do on top of that. I always, on top of a mist coat, give it another coat of a decent white paint before I then go on to colour. I find then you use less coloured paint, and also it gives you a good opportunity to spot any imperfections and fill them before you paint your colour. So I hope you liked the video, hope you found it useful and interesting and saved you a few quid instead of buying some specialist bare plaster paint that you actually don't need. So please don't forget, like and subscribe, turn on your notifications, and you can see any other videos that I've done. So thanks for watching.